So my parents met in high school, where they both went to high school together, and they started just as friends, but then they kind of started catching feelings for each other, and they both started to date, which is kind of cute because they're the traditional high school sweethearts, and that just gives us all hope here in high school. But they went to dances together, dressing up. The style wasn't that great back then. My mom's dress was not the best, but it's still cute for them to remember that. And then after high school, my mom decided to study abroad in Spain for a year because she was basically fluent in Spanish. So when that came, they tried to work out a long-distance relationship while she was gone for the whole year. And with that, they called each other every single day on the landline, trying to get a hold of each other. My mom had to pay to use a phone in Spain just to talk to my dad, and they would talk for hours because she finally did have a phone to talk to him. And my dad made this poster, which is a really nice memory to think about, because I get to see this picture of him holding a poster outside with a sign that says, "We'll do anything to get money to go to Spain." So he would help people with their cars or wash their cars or do maintenance and mechanic type stuff because he was really hands-on his whole entire life. So he would do any of that to try to get money to go on a plane to Spain to see my mom. So after Spain, they just continued to date. My mom loved my dad's family because her family lived in Florida, so she didn't get to see them much. So she became really close with my dad's sister and my dad's parents. And they just immediately welcomed her into her family, and that's when she knew that that's the man that she wanted to marry. And my dad had fallen in love with her way back in high school. So then he proposed and told everybody about their plans. They got married. They got married at a local church nearby so the whole family could go. Shortly after that, about 2 years after, they had me, and I just remember I went to work with my dad all the time. He was an upholsterer with his mom and dad. He worked at a local upholstery shop. I remember he would bring me to work with him, and I'd just sit on the little tool, dresser that they had, and I'd just sit there with my little feet dangling off. So I remember all of that when I was a kid. After me, my mom and dad had a lot of other kids, but then once we had our whole happy family together, we went on many vacations together. We would go camping up north, tubing, boating, fishing, anything you could think of. We were a very outdoorsy family, so we loved doing all of that. And then in about 2012, 2013, my dad decided he wanted to take us to go see the House on the Rock, it's called, and none of us had known what it was. We were all really confused when he told us, and we were like, "Dad, seriously, that's lame. Why are we gonna go see a house on a rock when we could go to some tropical island or the Wisconsin Dells or something with water parks?" But he was insistent on letting us go see the House on the Rock. So my mom, my dad, and me and all my siblings traveled there. We stayed at a really bad hotel, I remember. We just didn't really focus on that whole part though. But then the next day we went and actually visited the House on the Rock. And I remember all of us were so taken back with what it actually was because we had no idea what we were going into. And I remember just buying souvenirs together. We each got a sweatshirt. I still have it. We just looked around the whole house. I remember my dad is deathly scared of heights, and there was this one peak on the house that would walk off, and it was glass on the bottom, so then you could look down and see the huge drop. And all of us kids were doing it because we're not scared of heights, we're just little kids. So we were just running back and forth, and he was freaking out "Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna fall, that's a huge drop." And then we finally got him to do it, and it was just so funny. We were all laughing at him. And that was the last vacation we went on before everything changed. So on April 25th, 2013 was the day that I did not know yet, but that changed my family's life forever. On April 24th, my parents went out to go see some family that was in town, And this wasn't out of the ordinary. They liked to go on date nights together and go see family and friends, just like any other couple. So I remember that night they left and my mom came up to the couch and said goodbye to all of us because I was left to babysit my 4 younger siblings. And she said, "Love you," gave us all a hug. And then I remember my dad had actually forgotten to say goodbye and give us hugs. He had walked out the door to go start the car, and I remember running out after him, and I was like, "Dad, like, you forgot something." And he ran back and gave us all a hug and said, "Love you," and good night. I guess the way that this night ended wasn't like how most of their date nights was, because normally they would come home and check in and come see us in our room when they got home, wake us up, tell us that they made it home safe. And who would have thought? You just think, oh, they just came home and went to bed. But how this ended was actually what took their lives.
Friends tell us it was common to find Monica and Josh Griebel like this, arms wrapped around each other. The couple went out Thursday night but never returned. The accident on Highway 164, just a quarter mile from their home.
My parents were drinking when they were driving home, and yes, this is the leading cause of their death. And this is a huge mistake that they made. But think about this. How many people in the United States, how many people in the state of Wisconsin, and how many people in the high schools around our country drink and drive all the time, or just once in a while? The numbers are so extremely high for something that could just cost you your life so quickly. How can that happen? The night that my parents left, when my mom said "love you" to me for the last time, and when my dad gave me a hug, they did not think it was for the end. We all hold this Superman complex, believing that nothing bad is ever going to happen to us for the mistakes or the choices that we make, but it does. You might think that you are the exception, but nobody is the exception. There is not an exception when it comes to death. The choices that you make, you have to live with, and there are consequences with that. And if you can't make those changes for yourself, then you need to make them for those that you love. I know from firsthand experience being the one left behind. I was the kid left behind, having to wonder, why did this happen to my parents? How did this happen to my parents? And that is a feeling that I would wish on nobody. And my parents were absolutely amazing people. They did everything they could to put their family first, and that's who they were. They were great people that made one wrong mistake. And this can happen in a blink of an eye. My parents were 2 minutes away from home when the accident happened. 2 minutes. They only needed to drive 2 more minutes to be home and safe and with their family. 2 more minutes, and my siblings and I wouldn't have to be woken up the next morning by a cop, my aunt, and my grandparents saying that we no longer had a mom and dad. It was just 2 more minutes. That's how fast a mistake can happen. And this tragic event is what really put in perspective that I couldn't do it alone anymore. This is where I needed to have hope and faith come into my life. So with this, I believe that everything happens for a reason. Now, that might seem cliche to some of you, but honestly, it does, you guys. It's the truth. Now, I don't know exactly what the reason is behind my parents' accident. I don't know if that's because I'm to be here today speaking to all of you about this topic that I feel so passionate about and that I want to try to do something about, or if it's because God simply thought it was their time. Now, I know that we aren't all people of faith, and some of us actually hate religion, but I strongly believe that that is the only way that I could have gotten through this. The love from God, my church, Crossway, my family, my friends, my hope and faith, that is the only way that I am here today, standing right in front of all of you, sharing my story. I would not have expected to see myself doing this 5 years ago when the accident happened. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the support from my family and friends, specifically my aunt and uncle who adopted me and my 4 biological siblings, along with already having their 2 biological kids. And I will never be able to thank you enough for that support that you have given me. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. When Mr. Farron asked me to do this presentation, I was hesitant because this is something so personal and so near and dear to my heart that obviously you were hesitant on if you want to talk about something like that or not in front of all of these people. But I thought about it and figured I have two choices here. One, cover up something that happened just to try to hide it and keep it in and keep all my emotions in, or two, use it to try to influence somebody else's decisions, to try to change the way that somebody else thinks. I am not just another adult giving you guys a lecture. I am a teenager just like all of you. The only difference is that what you might be feeling during this simulation today, I felt firsthand, losing two of the most important people in my life. I was the kid left behind, having to understand why this happened to two amazing people that only loved and supported who they cared about. I had to be the one left behind, picking up the pieces. One thing I realized through this opportunity to share my story was that maybe, just maybe, I could change one person's opinion, one person's decision the next time they think they should drink and drive. Just maybe, this opportunity would give me a chance to save a mom, a dad, somebody's uncle, a family from going through that loss, a child, and maybe even one of you.